Yeesh. Hello, welcome to another video. I apologise if you can hear outside noise. It's really hot. I have to have this window open. I am melting. I'm having a bit more of a chilled sit-down video with you today because it's too hot for me to bother with a full face of makeup, and straightening my hair today is a no-go. So, sorry if I look a bit of a mess. But it is the 1st of August today, which means it's time to do my July wrap-up. And I am dreading filming this because I have 21 books to talk to you about. 21. Who am I? Who do I think I am? What do I think I'm doing? But yeah, 21 books. 2 of those were DNFs, so 19 books I actually finished, and then 2 DNFs, taking us up to 21 books attempted in July. So I think this could be the biggest wrap-up I've ever done, but it's definitely not my biggest, like, page count-wise. Like, if we go to my stats on my core pile spreadsheet, my spreadsheet only has the books that I completed. So 19 completed books, which is, I think, the best I've ever done. But my page count was only 4,964, but that doesn't include the 100 pages of 2 books that I didn't finish, and then 200 pages of a book that I'm currently in the middle of. So really, I should add another 400 pages onto that for that to be accurate, but they're not books that I finished, therefore they're not counted in the spreadsheet, and the 200 pages of the book that I'm in the middle of will be counted in July's. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean. In June, I said in the video, oh, June wasn't as good as July. Obviously, what I meant was June wasn't as good as May, but June also wasn't as good as July, so I did predict the future. Before we get into the wrap-up though, I like to use my wrap-up as my segment to give my furniture tier patrons and above their little shout-out, so I want to do that right now. If you aren't familiar, I do have a Patreon page. It's linked down in my description. No pressure ever for anyone to join that, but if you wanted to, it's down there, and my tiers are friends, family, furniture and artwork to build a household, and furniture and above get a little shout out. So here's a special thank you to my latest furniture patrons and above, which is Marlowe's, Mel, William and Amanda. So thank you very much guys for joining my little household on Patreon. I hope you enjoy your stay. Let's crack on with the wrap up. I'm probably not going to have like in-depth thoughts on all of these books because there's so many of them. The first book that I read in the month of July was The Farthest Shore, which is book 3 in the Earthsea series, which I read for the Laguinalong, which has since been cancelled. We had our last show, which was on the Tombs of Atuan and The Furthest Shore, so I needed to read that for that live show. But after that live show, the group, and mainly Ashley, decided that we're not enjoying the books. No one wants to read them, and it's just not worth the hassle that it is. So we're not progressing any further with that. That being said, I didn't particularly care for The Farthest Shore. I gave it 3 stars overall, very forgettable. I'm pretty sure The Farthest Shore is the one that has like the same plot as the first book, but with a sidekick, and I just wasn't there for it. I mean, I listened to the audiobook and read along, which I really think does help with the storytelling of this, but it's just not for me. I do now have all of the books, so I do anticipate that I will at some point in my life continue them. It's just really not a priority, especially now that Laguinalong isn't happening anymore. Reading them is not a priority for me, but I would still like to complete them just to say that I have, because Earthsea is one of those series that a lot of people say you should read, and I've started. I'm like halfway, 3 out of 6, you know. I will get there one day, but I'm just not overly impressed with this series. 3 stars, let's move on. Totally on the flip side of that, one of my new absolute favourite series is the David Bad trilogy, and I read Kingdom of Copper. This was ever so wonderfully picked for me by Becca when it came to TBR Pursuit. She picked this as her orange pick, and man am I glad she did. I was so eager to read this. I loved City of Brass. I loved Kingdom of Copper. I cannot wait to read Empire of Gold. I don't own it yet, but I need to because damn am I excited about it, because the series just sucks me in so much. I love the characters, I love the world, I love the politics. I am so absorbed in everything that's going on in this world. So the first book, City of Brass, follows Nari, who is a young woman in Cairo. She wants to be some sort of doctor. She has an affinity for sensing people's ailments and potentially healing them a little bit, but she's also a bit of a trickster. And she accidentally conjures a djinn who takes her to Daevabad, the City of Brass, where she discovers a whole lot about her family history and who she is, where she comes from, etc., which is carried through these books. Can't tell you too much about this one because spoilers for the first one, but it's dual perspective from Nari, who is our main character, and Ali, who is the prince of the Jinn in Daevabad. His perspectives are a little bit more political in the first book, whereas Nari's is kind of going on a bit more of a journey. But this book, I love this book so much. I gave it 5 stars. Does that go without saying? I gave it 5 stars. I adored this so much. Core pile wise, it got 9, 10, 9, 9, 9, 8, 10. So I gave it an 8 for logic, but everything else was 9s and 10s. I love it so much and I cannot wait to read Empire of Gold. I'm so excited for that. Yeah, so 5 stars. I love this series. If you have not read City of Brass, you absolutely should. Moving on. Next up, I read Goldy Vance Volume 1 by Hope Larson. This is about a young girl who lives in a hotel and she is the valet at the hotel, or that's what she's supposed to be, but she helps out with the detectives in the hotel, people that deal with lost and found items or any petty thefts or small crimes, etc. But a man goes missing, a strange piece of jewellery is stolen, and there's a big old case that Goldie gets involved in. I enjoyed this. This was fun. I'd had my eye on it for a while because it's boombox and it's compared to Lumberjanes in its fun vibe, and it definitely had that. I do want to continue with the series, however I did only rate it 3 stars. It didn't totally capture me. Maybe it wasn't fantastical enough for me because it is contemporary. There's nothing fantastical about it other than maybe Goldie's driving skills, because the girl can drive. Yeah, I had a good enough time with it and I will definitely continue the series. The cast of characters was very enjoyable, just didn't quite hit me in all of the right places for me to rate it any higher than 3. But that being said, 3 stars is not necessarily a bad rating. Next up, we head into Becca's 48-hour Bookopothon and the 8 books that I read for that, because your girl went over the top. But the first book that I kicked off that readathon with was A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow. I really enjoyed this. This is about 2 young girls, Effie and Tavia. Tavia is a siren. In this world, everyone seems to be some sort of mythical being. It's kind of normal for people to be these things. However, sirens are often looked down upon, and in this world, all sirens are black women, but not all black women are sirens, and the way the sirens are treated kind of reflects the discrimination and racism that black women face and the way they're treated in this world. Something that kicks off the series of events in this book is the murder of a black woman, and when she's accused of being a siren, suddenly everyone's like, oh, well, never mind. So it kind of morphs those things together, and I think it does a really good job of reflecting modern day racism and the difficulties that black women face in a fantastical way. I really enjoyed reading it. Obviously I cannot speak on that experience at all, but I did have a very good time reading it. Tavia is a siren. Effie is a mermaid, or she plays a mermaid in some sort of Renaissance fair. So they're both mermaid siren-esque creatures, but the story gets so much more complicated towards the end in regards to the fantastical elements of it. There's a gargoyle, there's sprites and stuff. There's all sorts going on in here. It definitely has a contemporary vibe to it. These are young girls. I think they go to a dance at a point and they're in school a fair bit. So I think that may be where I didn't hit it quite right, but I gave it 4 stars overall. And I did really enjoy the reading experience. It just didn't quite knock my socks off enough for a 5-star, and I think maybe that contemporary vibe to it. And there were a couple of bits that were maybe a little bit juvenile for me because I don't like high school contemporary. But the fantastical elements of it, were really well done, and I think the way that it like parallels the way sirens are treated with the way black women are treated in like our society, I think was really cleverly done, and I had a good time reading it. So yeah, 4 stars to A Song Below Water. Next up, I read Asha and the Spirit Bird by Jasbinder Bilan. I gave this one 3 stars. This is a middle grade about a young girl called Asha whose father has stopped writing and stopped sending the money. He's gone off to work in another city, and he was regularly writing and sending the money. However, that stops. Asha's mother is put in a difficult position because she has borrowed money that she cannot repay, so they may need to up and leave their home. Asha does not want to do that because she does not want to abandon the hope of her father. So she goes on a little journey to find her dad. It was a really beautiful story, and there's a lot of focus on like ancestral reincarnation in spirit animals, and the spirit bird has a big role in Asha's life and what she chooses to do and stuff. I think that was really beautiful. However, the writing didn't quite work with the vibe for me. Like, the writing didn't feel as whimsical as the world felt like it needed to be. Do you know what I mean? Like, the writing just didn't quite hit the mark. But it was a beautiful story. Overall, I gave this one 3 stars. I think it came out a decent, like a pretty high 3-star rating. I liked it, and would I recommend? Absolutely. It was also a really quick read. It's a middle grade, so that helps. But like, it was very compelling. Next up, I read Blackbird by Sam Humphries, and this absolutely knocked my socks off. 5 stars. It's a comic graphic novel, and it absolutely blew me away. I adored it. I cannot wait to read more from this series because this was fantastic. 1, the art style is just stunning. Look at this. I don't want to spoil anything. Damn, is it beautiful? It's so beautiful. So beautiful. It's gorgeous. 2, the story is incredible. So this follows a young girl called Nina Rodriguez who, when she was younger, experienced an earthquake. And something that happened at the site of that earthquake leads Nina to believe in magic and paragons and this alternate side to the city that she lives in. I don't want to spoil too much, but it probably goes without saying when you see the back of the book. She was right. There's a whole heck of magic in this, and it just was beautifully done. Like, it blew me away. I can't describe it. I cannot describe it. The magic was incredible. The characters were great. I really loved the like family feud story that was fueling this and fueling all of Nina's rage, because she is flawed. She is not a good girl, but I loved her anyway, and I loved her story, and like regrettable choices she made. Yes. Was I there for them? Yes. Do I want more of this? Yes. I cannot recommend enough. Absolutely 5 stars. Read this comic. Just read it, please. Then I picked up Lumberjanes Volume 12 by the normal Lumberjanes gals. This one let me down. I can't remember why. Oh no, yeah I can. They're hunting for a jackalope, and the story just felt really thin, like there wasn't much to it. I'm pretty sure like there was a decent portion of this that wasn't even related to that story. It was something to do with like a camp newspaper. Oh yeah, like the whole last chapter of this, so it's chapter 48, wasn't related to like the rest of it, and it didn't feel anywhere near like developed or fleshed out enough. The story was not thick enough, but I love Lumberjanes and I love the characters, so I'm always gonna score it decently for that. But this one ended up with a 2-star, unfortunately. Lumberjanes is very up and down for me. Sometimes I love them, sometimes they're a bit of a miss. This one was a bit of a miss, so 2 stars here. But I still love the series as a whole. I've been filming for 20 minutes and we're only 7 books in. I need to hurry up. The next book that I read was Ivy Aberdeen's Letter to the World by Ashley Herring Blake. This was a gift from Molly. This was the group book for Detectathon that Molly was hosting in July, and unfortunately contemporary is just really not for me. The only reason I picked this up and read it was because of Molly, and because of it being the group book for her, I wanted to support her and her readathon, and she gifted it to me, so I read it, but it really just isn't for me. That being said, it's definitely not a bad book. I see all of its merits. If you are a contemporary reader, middle grade contemporary especially, because it is definitely more on the middle grade side, then I can see you enjoying this. This is about a young girl called Ivy Aberdeen, and a tornado rips through her town and tears her home to shreds, so her life's all a bit up in the air. On top of that, her sketchbook has gone missing, which holds all of her drawings of girls holding hands. These drawings then start mysteriously appearing in her locker at school, with notes trying to convince Ivy to own who she is and admit that she's into girls, basically. But alongside this, Ivy is dealing with her first real crush on a girl and how to handle that. There's a lot going on in this little girl's life, and the book covers all of that. So if you're into contemporary, especially like, as I say, middle grade vibes, then I see you enjoying this, but I gave it 2 stars because it's just not for me. But as I said, the writing was not bad, the pacing was not bad, it's just not my cup of tea, so I don't think I really can speak more about this. It just wasn't for me. Next up, I read The Wicked King by Holly Black. Shocker. We're still in Becca's Bookopoulathon, by the way. We're still reading for that. I picked this one up because I needed a YA fantasy, and I was just stumped on that prompt. Ended up going for The Wicked King. This is the sequel to The Cruel Prince that I read a real long time ago and just had not been tempted to pick up the sequel until now. Most of this book I was very meh about until the very end. The very end had me totally shocked. Like, completely. I was like, what? So overall, it got a 3-star, like combining the bits at the beginning where I was just a bit like, meh, to the end where I was like, ah! So yeah, overall 3 stars. If you're not familiar with what The Cruel Prince is about, it is about a girl called Jude and her twin sister Taryn, whose parents are murdered by a fairy guy, and they are taken to fairy and raised in fairy and treated terribly by everyone in fairy for being human. Basically, it's all just not very good for them, but somehow they make a life there, and Jude is sick of being bottom of the food chain shit, so is like making her way up to the top, essentially. Next up, I read Isola by Brendan Fletcher, sorry. This I did really enjoy. It was very vague. Like, the plot wasn't necessarily very thick or big, but like the intrigue was really there. So this follows a woman who is a captain of the Queen's Guard, and the Queen has gone missing, and by gone missing, she's turned into this tiger. This tiger is the Queen, and the Queen's Guard has to take the tiger Queen to Isola to solve a problem. I think that problem is probably that the Queen is a tiger. It was really curious. Like, I was really into it. I was intrigued by everything. There were different, like, tribes of people that were trying to get to them, and, like, the risk felt very high. And the, like, dangerous adventure was there. I had a really good time reading this, and I really want to read volume 2 because curiosity is, like, very high. Overall, I gave this one a 4-star. The curiosity and the intrigue overruled the fact that the plot wasn't necessarily very thick. Also, the artwork was just beautiful. Beautiful. So yeah, 4 stars overall for this one. I cannot wait to read the 2nd volume of it. Then lastly, for Becca's Bookopoulathon, I read Giant Days Volume 11. I'm getting there with Giant Days, and I gave this one 4 stars overall. At this point with Giant Days, I find it very difficult to differentiate between volumes because it is a slice of life comic series about these 3 girls at university and just the troubles that they get into on their daily adventures. Can't necessarily remember what this volume was about, but it's a contemporary comic series that I genuinely enjoy, so it's always my fallback for a readathon that wants me to read a contemporary. I'm like, Giant Days. And that's exactly what happened here. I enjoyed it. I still enjoy this series. I will continue it. I'm having a good time. It's very light-hearted and non-committal and just gives me what I need. Next up, we head into my Fairy Loot week, where I tried to read a few Fairy Loot books, and the first one that I read was A River of Royal Blood by Amanda Joy, and this surprised me a lot. I ended up really enjoying this. For some reason, the cover of this is what put me off. Like, I just really wasn't feeling the cover. It did nothing for me. However, reading it, it did a lot for me. So this story follows two princesses, our main character being Eva and her sister Isabel, maybe, and Eva. And Eva has magic of blood and marrow. So all of the humans in this world have some sort of magic, and it's a bit nonsensical as to like where the magic comes from. It seems very random. Our main character has magic of blood and marrow, which is this incredibly rare and apparently incredibly dangerous type of magic. So she's never really been able to be trained in it properly, which is a big issue because in this world, the heirs must be put to battle and only one can win the place of queen. So the sisters have to fight to the death for the throne, and that is what this book is building up to. We are learning a lot about Eva's magic and why it's so deadly and dangerous, yet somehow she's the underdog in this battle to the death situation. It was just really interesting. Another interesting thing about this world is how it's like split into the different like groups of people. So there's the humans, there's the fairies, and there's the bloodkin, which are like vampires. And then there's also the chimera, who are like people with animal traits, like maybe horns or a tail or something, but they've been exiled and are basically like kept prisoners somewhere else because of an ancient war. But there's so much politics and there's so much magic, and I'm doing a really bad job of selling this, but it took me by surprise and I ended up really loving it. There is a slight romance aspect to this plot, but it does not overshadow anything else and is not a big deal. I feel like in the sequel it might be a bigger deal, but it was just right in this book, in my opinion. There was murder, there was blood, there's dark magic, there's twisted politics, fight to the death, queen who's a bit questionable. It had lots of things that I really, really enjoyed. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Didn't quite hit the 5-star mark for me, unfortunately, but I had a real fun time with it. And if you have not read this, if you're like me, got this from a Fairy Loot and it's been sat on your shelf for a real long time because the cover doesn't quite call to you, I recommend that you give it a go because I really enjoyed it. Following on from that, I then read Girl Serpentthorne by Melissa Bashadaust, which also took me by surprise a fair amount. The concept of this is incredible. The princess is poisonous. Like, poisonous to the touch. Like, her veins run green. She is lethal. Touching her skin will kill you. And I think that is a brilliant setup for this book. I almost don't want to tell you anything else than that, because, like, how interesting is that? But also, another interesting thing is the presence of these... Are they called demons? I don't know. Are they... Yeah, it is a demon. Below in the dungeon is a demon who holds knowledge she craves. So there are demons in this world, and it's a demon's curse that has made her poisonous, and she's kind of eager to get rid of this curse because she doesn't like being poisonous to the touch, as you can imagine. But there's all sorts of politics at play because, as I say, she's a princess. Her twin brother is like just about to get the throne. Their father passed away a long time ago, so yeah, her twin brother is like king in waiting. So there's all sorts of politics at play as well, and there is a female-female romance in here also. There's lots going on. It took me by surprise. I really liked it. But the one thing that I just found really great about this book is the concept of having a poisonous princess that's literally poisonous to the touch. I thought that was a great concept for a book. So yeah, it was a quick read as well. It's incredibly short, very easy to fly through. Love the politics, love the action, the brutality of some of it was right up my street. Plays, the deceptions, the betrayals, and the romance in it wasn't like overly romancy and like icky. You know how I don't like a romance that's icky? It wasn't icky. It was very well done, in my opinion. And as I say, female, so plus. Overall, I gave this one 4 stars. Again, didn't quite hit the mark to be a 5-star read, but pleasantly surprised and enjoyed it plenty. Next up we have Vicious by Victoria Schwab. Victoria Schwab is my favourite author. I absolutely adore her books very much. This was a reread for me. I have read Vicious before, but me and Becca are now buddy reading the entire works of Victoria Schwab, which excites me very much. So Vicious follows Victor and Eli, who are two lads in university, and they're doing a thesis on extraordinaries, which are basically people with superpowers. And they get a little bit experimental and discover that the way to get superpowers is to have a near-death experience, which leads them to kill each other and themselves until they have success. Flash forward 10 years, Victor has just broken out of prison and him and Eli are mortal enemies, destined to kill each other. It's great. I love this book. I gave it 5 stars the first time I read it. I gave it 5 stars the second time I read it. I adore it very much. I love Victor and I love Sydney. Sydney is just such a sweet bean. The whole cast of characters, all these extraordinaries and their different abilities and how they got them is just fantastic, and the pacing in this book is so good. Really short chapters, you can fly through it so quick. The timeline in the beginning is a little bit confusing because you're flashing back and forward, like 10 years ago, present day, 2 weeks ago, 10 years ago, last summer, etc. But it works to give you the full story, and then you get to a certain point where instead of flashing back, it's counting down to midnight and what's going to happen at midnight. I just think it's an incredibly well-written book and I love it, and I gave it 5 stars, but it's Victoria Schwab, so can you expect anything less of me? Not really. So yeah, love this very much. Next up, we get into the books that I read for Readathon, which is my 24-hour readathon, and I kick that off with The Explorer by Catherine Rundell. This is a middle grade adventure story about a group of kids whose plane crashes in the Amazon rainforest and they have to survive somehow. This I enjoyed a lot, but not as much as I thought I was going to. One of the characters in here, Max, he's really funny to start with, but it just got old really quick. And also, what I was expecting from the plot, I didn't necessarily get. It felt way more of a survival story than an adventure story. I was kind of a little bit disappointed by that, but that being said, I still gave it 4 stars overall and did really enjoy it. It's an incredibly quick read, like not only because it's middle grade and like, you know, how middle grades are set, it's quicker to read, but also, like, the story's just very propelling, despite the fact that at times it felt like the plot wasn't necessarily going anywhere very fast and they weren't making much progress. It was still really propelling to read, and before I knew it, I was like 200 pages in and I felt like I hadn't been reading for very long at all. This is our middle grade monthly book club pick for July, and the live show is actually happening tonight on the day I'm filming this, so will have already happened by the time you see this, so I will leave a link to it somewhere, probably in the description, so you can go and listen to me and Gav chat about this in some more depth. But yeah, gave it 4 stars overall. It was a really compelling read, just disappointing in a weird way, but I still gave it 4 stars, so still a very good book, in my opinion. Next up, I read Waking Gods by Sylvain Nouvelle. This is the sequel to Sleeping Giants, which I read a couple of years ago, and that was one of the most surprising, incredible books I've ever read. Absolutely loved it. Took me by surprise. Blew me out of the water, adored it. This is told in interview format. It follows the story, or the first one does at least, follows the story of a young girl who, when she was little for her birthday, she got a bike, she rode it through the forest and fell into a hole into a giant metal robot hand. Flash forward a few years and you're following the research team researching what this hand is, where it came from, where the rest of its body is, what it could do, what it means. But as I say, interview format, and the interviewer is this really mysterious guy who you don't know anything about. We don't know his name, we don't know who he really works for, what side he's on, what he wants, what is driving him, and that is really compelling in this story, because like you're eager to know what this interviewer's deal is. Also, the robot, you know, that's also quite compelling. It's just a real fast-paced, mind-boggling story, and I had such a good time with the first one and with this one. This one didn't quite blow me away as much as the first one did. The first one was like hands down 5 stars. This one ended up getting 4 stars from me, but I still had a really good time with it. I'm really enjoying this story. There are some tragedies that I am not happy about. I'm loving this series and I only have one book left now. I have, however, heard that the third book is a little bit more disappointing, which upsets me, but I'm still eager to read it because the story has been a journey and I need to reach the end and know what is going on. But yeah, 4 stars for this. I really recommend this series. The first one was incredible. I think the reason this one missed the mark a little bit is because it didn't shock me as much, because I knew what was coming more, maybe. Next up, I read The Tea Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill. This is difficult to rate, but I gave it 4 stars. There wasn't much of a plot, but it's not a very big book. It's just an adorable story. Like, it's so cute. The little dragons are so sweet. The characters are adorable. And it was just a really quick, cute, fun time. So it follows a couple of girls learning about tea dragons. They're tiny dragons that make tea. Adorbs. So yeah, I gave this 4 stars and there's not really much more for me to say. It was adorable. Do I want to continue this series? Yes. Yes, I do. It was cute. Next up, for Readathon, the last thing I managed to squeeze in for Readathon was The Gauntlet by Karuna Niazi. This is like a Jumanji style thing. These kids find this mysterious, dodgy looking board game and decide to play and get sucked into the board game, and they have to complete the game, fight like the villain of the game in order to escape the game and everyone else who's trapped in it as well. It was really fast-paced, very compelling, a quick read. Again, it's middle grade, so there's that, but also the story was just really fast-paced and I appreciated that a lot. I didn't necessarily love the characters, I didn't hate them, I just didn't feel very strongly about them, and the last portion of the book confused me a lot. Like the first couple 100 pages, I was totally there for it, was loving it, was really enjoying my time. It was compelling, it was fast-paced, it was action-packed, I was loving the game, it was great. And then towards the last 100 pages, it got a bit confusing, and the things that were happening, I was just like, oh, well that's a totally different tone and not what I was really here for. And it just became a bit, I don't know, the last 100 pages just felt like they didn't belong to this book, unfortunately for me, and therefore it kind of muddled up my thoughts on it, but the first couple 100 pages were so good, so good. Overall, I still think it was a good book and a good read, and if you want that Jumanji feel for it and the danger in the game, absolutely recommend. I ended up giving it 3 stars overall though, purely because of that disconnect with the last 100 pages. It just didn't quite feel right to me. 3 stars overall for The Gauntlet. And then the last thing that I completed in July was Mythopedia, which is a children's encyclopedia created by Good Wives and Warriors. This was an arc from NetGalley, so thank you very much NetGalley for giving me the opportunity to read this. I requested it because I saw Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction read it, and she was going on about the illustrations and how beautiful it was, and I'm just gonna solidify what she said. It is so beautifully illustrated. It is a gorgeous book. It tells little stories of mythical creatures from all across the globe, and it's segmented into, say there's Asian mythology, African mythology, European mythology, American mythology, and it gives you a page that's got a beautiful illustration of the mythical being and then the story of the mythical being, and about half of them then have a double page spread telling you a specific story of that being, what it did for the world, where it came from, what it means, etc. So it gives you a really nice introduction to different cultures' mythologies, and I just think it was brilliant. It's a great introduction read as a children's mythology encyclopedia. I think it was really good. I ended up giving it 4 stars overall. The illustrations made it a fantastic experience. The stories were great. I maybe would have liked more stories, maybe an actual story on each creature, but then I get that that would have been a lot. It was a really enjoyable experience, and for a kid that's interested in mythology, great. I definitely learned something new from it. There were mythological creatures in there that I had no idea what they were, so it educated me. So yeah, 4 stars overall for Mythopedia. We then have my 2 DNFs of the month. I'm not going to talk too much about these because I DNF'd them, but the first one was Sisters of the Winterwood by Rena Rossner. This I really wanted to fill the winter night shaped hole in my heart, but it really didn't. It was very romancy focused. Half of it was told in verse, which I didn't expect, but overall there was a lot that I didn't expect from the 100 or so pages that I read. Pretty much everything that is explained on the blurb happens within the first 100 pages, and then it's just about finding them husbands. I wasn't about that, didn't feel it, so DNF'd it because I didn't have time for that. Unfortunately, I'm really sad about this because I was really hoping it was going to fill that winter night hole in my heart. It really just missed the mark. I wanted that like slow burn magic reveal and didn't get that, so unfortunately DNF'd this one. And then also unfortunately DNF'd Bone Crier's Moon, which I'm really sad about because this is beautiful and I thought I was gonna love it and I didn't. Again, very romancy focused, not about that. Felt like the plot was going nowhere. This is about a girl who is a bone crier, which means she needs to kill her true love, so she lures her true love to this bridge, but he knew about it, so he captured her, and it was just very petty and romancy, and like, I wasn't having a good time with this. It was really difficult for me to read. It took me like almost a week to get a couple 100 pages into this, and I decided to read. It was during my Fairyloot week, so you can see my proper thoughts in my Fairyloot week vlog where I actually discuss my feelings as I have them, but I decided to pick something else up to see if I was slumping or if it was the book. Turns out it was the book. It just weren't for me. So DNF this as well, unfortunately. And lastly, just a special mention to the book that I'm currently in the middle of, that I read about 200 pages of during July, is Assassin's Quest, which I'm obviously reading for the catch-up book club, which the live show for is mid-August, so I still have time to read this. But in the process of, and got 200 pages done during July. And boom, there we go. I've honestly been filming for like an hour. I need to cut this down. I'm sorry, I tried to be chill, I tried to be quick. I'm sorry for how long this has been. If you have made it this far, please leave me an orange heart in the comments just to let me know that you made it this far. I admire your commitment to this video because you have more of it than I do. But yeah, if you've read any of these books, want to chat to me about any of these books, then of course feel free to do so down below. Plenty of stuff to chat about this month. But yeah, I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, give us a thumbs up. Chat to me down below, leave an orange heart. If you aren't subscribed and fancy subscribing, I'm always eternally grateful for that. But for now, I'm going to go and put my battery on charge because it's flashing at me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!